Hi, readers. It's Lori. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper. I'm happy that you're here. And if you're brand new, I would love it if you would subscribe. I'm trying to set sort of a goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers, which has for a long time seemed like a very difficult goal. But recently, it seems like it's possibly going to happen at some point. So if you haven't subscribed already, just know that that is not required, but it is important because then I know that you will like my channel and that you'll get notifications about the videos that I have coming up. So give that some thought if you would. And if you know other bookish friends that you think would like this channel, just let them know about me too. And maybe they'll want to come in and subscribe as well. So today I was listening to one of my Patreon videos from the Currently Reading podcast, and it reminded me that I started researching a little while ago some books about books because I was noticing, and you've probably noticed too, that recently I have been reading books about books or learning about books that I then ended up purchasing. So one of the most recent that comes to mind was No Two Persons by Erica Bauermeister, and then I recently acquired the book the books that wouldn't burn, or the book that wouldn't burn by Mark Lawrence, and that's one of my highly anticipated 5-star reads coming up. So I am really interested in reading more books about books. I have loved so many of them. 84 Charing Cross Road is one that comes to mind for me for sure. As I mentioned, No Two Persons is a good one. I read a Jenny Colgan about a bookshop. I think it was called The Bookshop on the Corner. And I remember just loving that book so much. I have read a couple others of hers, and I think I tried to start one not long ago, but she has several books about books in her catalog. So let's talk about a few that I've kind of been looking at or just heard about today when I was listening to that podcast. There's a couple that are a little dark and then some that are super light. The first one on my list is a little dark. It is nonfiction, actually, and it is called The End of Your Life by Will Schwalbe. Will's mom is dying of pancreatic cancer, and while they are in the hospital doing some testing at the beginning of her journey into this next phase of her life, they start talking about what books they're both reading or what books they both liked, which then leads them on a journey of reading books together during her treatment and talking about them in their own little 2-person book club. I've heard a lot of people have enjoyed this. Obviously, it's difficult, but it is also apparently lighthearted. It gets some great ratings, and I've read a lot of recommendations that say that it is thought-provoking. It also gives you some books to add to your TBR, of course, if you haven't read them. Anne Bogle did an interview with Will, apparently, on one of her podcasts, What Should I Read Next? I did not hear that one, so I might go back and listen to that after I read this. Another one is Midnight at the Bright Ideas Bookstore. I had to look at the title again, and this is by Matthew Sullivan. I've marked this to read in 2017 at the end of the year, and I've just not gotten to it. And I think in part because it is pretty dark in some ways, but the person at the bookstore, whose name is Lydia, is grappling with the fact that one of her customers, Joey, has committed suicide. And it's just really, kind of rocked her world. And in some way, as I remember from the synopsis, Joey has left a trail of sort of information through the bookstore in the ways in which he left things or did things to the books. And while this sounds like a very dark story, it does allow her to kind of come to terms with and understand who Joey was and what was happening for him. It also unearths some memories of her childhood, which were not pleasant. So again, this is a darker one, but it is a book about books all the same. And I did want to read it back then, and I think it's still something that I'm interested in, even after reading the synopsis again all these years later. Another one I marked to read a while ago is Dear Fahrenheit 451 by Annie Spence. fact, I marked this to read in 2019. This is definitely a book about books, and it is nonfiction also, in the sense that Annie takes a look at, as a librarian, she takes a look at a number of books that she has not read, and she begins to read them, and then she writes a letter to the book telling the book what she thought about it. In some cases, she had a delightful experience. In some cases, obviously, she did not. It is apparently humorous and lighthearted, which is a good kind of twist from what we just talked about, right? But also, in the first half, she sort of reads all of these love letters or letters of discontent. Let's not say hate mail. And then in the second half of the book, she gives you some recommendations about books and gives you a bit more information about them for your TBR. So if you're looking for a TBR list in the refreshing time of the summer, this might be a good one to pick up too. I did find this on Scribd in ebook. I don't think it was there on audiobook, but I think reading the book in this case would be better than listening. I'm not sure though. I guess it probably wouldn't matter. I don't know. Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. I marked to read in, let me look, 2012. This is by Robin Sloan. I have my iPad next to me so I can take a look at them. This one, obviously, in 2012, I was really excited about this book, and nobody talks about it recently. So again, this is kind of a backlist to read for me. It's very cleverly, I think, navigated. A new employee at Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore, whose name is Clay, comes to work and learns that there are some people that continue to come into the bookstore, but they never buy anything, and they never even seem to be considering the book in that way. And it turns out that there are a number of clues within these books. All of these clues apparently are connected to something bigger and mysterious, and Clay is determined to find out what that is. I think this is historical fiction because I feel like it's set in the past. Anne Bogle blurbed it as Harry Potter meets the National Treasure, antique texts meet Google. She said it's a quick read and it's a lot of fun. And I remember thinking at that time, and I think that that's actually where I heard about it the first time, that would be a fun read. And so, yeah, this is the moment where I think I dive into these kinds of reads. Perfect timing. Another one I recently talked about is YellowFace by R.F. Kuang. I'm not reading it now because it's more thrillery, but I know you're tired of hearing that. I definitely am intrigued by this one, and it must be good because it's hard to get my hands on at the library. I'm not ready to purchase it at this point because my hauls are bigger than I'd like them to be. And, it might just be, and I'm noticing this with thrillers, they're good, they're great, they're popcorn sometimes, they're, a quick snack, but they're not something that I'm really like sitting down and enjoying in a 5-course meal, nor are they something that I may read again. So that's what I'm kind of considering. But YellowFace follows 2 authors that kind of support each other and are encouraging each other to write, and they meet apparently pretty often. And then one of them dies, and the other one might be considering, if not absolutely doing, a swap and saying that she wrote this book that her friend wrote. I do love books that are set in this trope because it generally doesn't turn out well. I read a book like this called The Plot by Jean. It was something with a correlates, maybe something, a few years ago, and I enjoyed it. And I do find that books about readers or books about authors who steal someone else's work they're kind of a cringe point for me, like adultery is for some people in a novel. Like I don't think I ever really give them 5 stars because I feel like I hate the character from the start. But we'll see what happens with YellowFace if I end up giving it 5 stars. A lot of people have. But it's kind of like to me, it's kind of like adultery is for some other people, or, sexual assault or lots of other terrible things. But yeah, that's a kind of a trigger point for me. And the last one is also nonfiction, and I own this one, and that's The Library Book. Can you see it? By Susan Orlean. It's the lighting. It's always the lighting. The lighting is my arch enemy. Okay. I've had this for a while. I got it on a trip to Oxford to Square Books, and I haven't been there in a couple of years. So obviously I haven't gotten to this backlist. Several of these are, even if I didn't own them. Susan Orlean is a prolific writer of just unique things that have happened, or unique events, as well as just uncovering some kind of not everyday things that are occurring in our lives. But this one actually follows a fire that occurred in the Los Angeles Public Library in the late 80s. I think it was 85 or 86. I remember it being around the time my son was born. So I have no memory of this in my experience. I was probably sleep deprived and unable to really think about it. But millions and millions of books were destroyed. And apparently it was never discovered who was responsible for the fire. Was it an accident? Who or what was responsible? Yeah. So was it an accident, or was it an individual? And so she kind of unpacks this and looks at some of the evidence, and it says it's a thrilling investigation of the fire that's hailed as a national treasure by the Washington Post. So that sounds good, right? Everybody blurbed it, said they really enjoyed it. And it has on Goodreads 3.89 stars, but it has a lot of ratings. So it's very popular. It looks like Reese's Book Club has a sticker on it too. And that is not necessarily anything that leads me to buy these books, but I do end up, I guess, getting some popular ones. But I think what I like about this list that I brought forward today is that maybe some of these are a little more obscure than others. We'll see. You may say, oh yeah, I've heard of every one of those. I've read them all, who knows? But I tried to bring forward a range of books, especially in the sense of when they were published. So hopefully these are books that even if you did know about them, maybe like me, you have not gotten to them all this time and you think now is the time. So that's kind of where I am today. And a couple of these could end up on my next You Pick My Nonfiction Read, which will be coming up, of course, next month, because the next quarter will be done. I'm not opposed to that happening, and you can pick which one of these nonfiction books about books that I decide to go with. But I do think that I'm in the mood. I'm in the mood for books about books, and get rid of that Goodreads backlist. I have so many backlists that I need to kind of tackle. It's really becoming quite a overwhelming dilemma. Thanks for watching me today. Thanks for being patient while I was out sick for a little bit. I'm feeling much, much better today. I do have my It's a Good Day to Read a Book shirt on. I just feel like whatever this was is passing, because I'm noticing some things that are no longer plaguing me. So good luck. Hopefully I stay well. Hopefully you all stay well too. Stay cool, because almost anywhere you live in the country right now, you're experiencing extremes of some sort. And as always, happy reading. Bye.